Welcome to Healing Your Family Legacy, here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Innovative, evidence-based recovery that helps to identify intergenerational trauma, allowing for freedom and embracement of the healing process. Today, episode 76, My Wife, Part 1. And now your host, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee.
And this is Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, helping you heal your family legacy. Just so that you know, and you might not have realized in my other podcasts, you can contact me at any time at healingyourfamilylegacy@gmail.com. If you want to contact me, I will definitely get back to you. You can ask me questions. You can make comments. Be nice, though. I mean, I'm doing the best I can. And I also wanted to remind you about my book. It's going to be available on audiobook, I hope, in the next few weeks or so. It's up to me now. I have to review it, and it's been available on Amazon.com, and it is called Iron Legacy, Childhood Trauma and Adult Transformation. And most of what I've been talking about is available. So just FYI, those two things. Today, I have a very special guest with me, and it's my wife. Is that okay?
That's okay.
Say that? Okay. and her name is Deb, and she has courageously agreed to be with me on the show today. So without further ado, Deb, welcome. Really happy you're here. I'm happy you're here every day. But today I'm really happy that you have agreed to come with me on the show because I think that your story is amazing and incredible. And I think it speaks to the impact of emotional neglect and abandonment. You know, not everybody is, we talk about abuse a lot by talking about, getting beat up and all that kind of stuff. But there's serious adult implications when a child grows up with emotional abandonment and emotional and neglect. So, yeah, I wanted you to talk about that today. And if you don't mind, you can start by just giving us your story about what it was like and what happened to you growing up in your family.
Okay. Well, number one, I didn't know this was a big issue until I met you, because I just thought everybody is like this. Everybody has, this kind of experience. So I'll preface it with that. I grew up with two alcoholic parents, and I was basically an only child for 10 years until my sibling came along. So for 10 years, I was with two alcoholic parents. And, for me, it was watching the chaos going on between them and just trying to fly under the radar and be the perfect kid and not to cause any waves or any disruptions any more than already what was going on in the house. So, and because I was also an Army brat, we moved a lot. So I didn't have the opportunity as a result of that to develop friendships, which now I understand is an important thing, and I didn't know then. So I was alone a lot and lonely a lot. And I didn't realize that that was any big deal. So that was kind of the reference of growing up.
When you say that you were flying under the radar, can you, even if you have to make it up, just thinking about it today, can you remember making that decision? Because, usually babies and small children don't say, well, I think I'll fly under the radar. There's usually a reason for that. Did you think that you were responsible for the chaos that was going on?
I think I was confused by the chaos, and I was afraid. I was, although I don't think I realized it as an adult that that's what it was, but because of the yelling, and of the chaos and of what was going on between my parents, I just felt like that was overwhelming enough. And somehow, I don't know if I just decided, and I can't think of a specific incident where I just decided I better just be the perfect kid and not cause any problems any more than what's already going on to make it worse. So I guess maybe that was somehow in there, and I can't think of a specific incident that caused me to believe that.
But it was an overall feeling that, well, you're in a family where there's chaos going on and you're only child. So, it makes sense that you would, quote, fly under the radar. But, it also seems a little bit like when you talk about that you needed to be way out of the radar. Like, I should disappear. How can I disappear and get out of this? Like crawl into a corner or something, to be as small as possible so they couldn't see you. Does that sound right? Ring true?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so just taking that one, that one experience, that one big experience, how do you think that affected you in your adult life?
Well, as far as, I don't like confrontation in relationships. Seeing fighting going on with your little kid is really scary. And I decided that, I can't, I just shut down. If there's anything that there's a disagreement or some sort of, even somebody yelling at me, just in life, I find that I really have to work on not shutting down and going back to being a child and realizing that I can be okay, but it's still scary.
So in your relationships as an adult, then if there was any sense of conflict, and it could even be like non-confrontational, just that we aren't agreeing on this, you would just shut down?
It seems like I would shut down, or I would shut down and then have to really gather myself and then come back to it and then be more, I guess you'd say, rational and being able to talk. But immediately that would be the response. So
the first thing that would happen, it sounds like you've, I know you've done a lot of work around this. So, but it sounds like your first reaction would be to go quiet. And then you'd have to really think about, what am I going to do? How am I going to respond? But it sounds like it was even scary then to then, okay, I'm rational now. I know what I want to say, but it's scary to even say it.
Well, it was scary. I do have a memory. Another way that I guess it affected me is like my feelings weren't, what do I want to say? I don't know if discounted is the right word when I was growing up, but I really didn't know what
Mm-hmm.
feelings were. I had no idea. And it's taken me a lot of work to figure out what my feelings are. And I still work on that today, so I have a memory of my mom one day, I don't even know what was going on, but she asked me, what's wrong with you, or what's wrong, or what's going on. And I just looked at her, with tears welling up in my eyes going, nothing, and I just wasn't safe to say. So, but, so that was a part of the emotional abuse, I think.
Yes, that is definitely emotionally abusive. Does she ask that today? Like, what's wrong? What's wrong with you?
Not so much. We're not in that place now, but I mean, I think the communication is a little bit better, but yeah, not so much. No.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel safe having a conversation with her, or even having a conflict with her? Do you feel safe now, or do you feel like you have to really struggle to keep what we call your adult on board versus having your, being triggered into your child?
I think I have moments. I think for the most part, I'm in my adult, but there are times where I find myself at times being triggered, where you can feel that old childhood trauma come up. So yeah, there are times when that does, yeah.
And then do you have to stop and gather yourself? That's what you say, gather yourself before you're able to talk to her again?
Yeah, I do. Yep. Just got to stop it and yep.
And so you are a strong, capable woman, and your mother describe how she is today.
Well, my mom's in her 80s and is struggling with a disease and is elderly and frail. And I don't know. I don't know how to describe her. That's kind of interesting to describe my mom.
Well, I think you described her well. I mean, I will say, because I've talked about this before on my podcast, is that I'm short. I am a very short person. I'm shorter than most 10-year-olds, We're talking short. And your mother's shorter than me now.
Yes.
Frail. So that's what I'm saying is that you're about, 5'7", 5'8", right?
Yeah.
And you are, it's like, I know that you work out. I know that you get exercise. I know that you eat right. And so you're quite capable and competent. And that's my point, is that this doesn't go away. I'm talking to the audience now. This doesn't go away. Here's a capable, competent woman who's been working on her childhood trauma issues for many years. Well, God, she's married to me. I mean, poor thing. Anyway, and yet, here's this elderly woman in her 80s who is dealing with a disease that will likely take her from us. She's short, she's frail, and she is, she can't do hardly anything by herself. And yet, all she has to do is challenge you, and you go right into that ego state. You don't always, but you can be triggered right into that ego state. So it doesn't have anything to do, your reactions as an adult have nothing to do really with now, your adult self. Now, of course, sometimes it will, because if you're working on this, you'll be able to see it right away, right? But when you get triggered into that child ego state, it must feel so frightening until you can get yourself back into your adult self. Yeah. And that's true for all of us.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's surprising that it still does. So, yeah, the effect of childhood trauma just is the gift that keeps on giving, and you really just have to keep working on it.
Yeah. And did she ever hit you?
Rarely. She was, I remember a few times where she slapped me, but mainly it was verbal abuse. She's really good and can still do that and deliver,
I know.
Just cutting. It's not pretty.
And when she was, drinking, because I knew her all that time. We've been together. Gosh, we're coming up on 19 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next month. Oh my gosh. Well, you know how those gay and lesbian relationships are. They just don't last.
Yeah.
We've got more years than most of the people we know that are heterosexual. Anyway, that's another day. But what I'm saying is that I've known her, and when she was able to get her own booze, she could get nasty right away. I've seen it. I've felt it. I know. So, for you to be able to hold your own, and she can't drink now because, you have to buy her booze, right?
Yep.
and that's just not happening. So, poor thing. I know that she's, nobody deserves to be in the state she's in, but I know that that's different now, largely because you're not drinking.
Yeah, I think so.
If she was still drinking like she used to, I think it would be worse.
Yeah. Or she wouldn't be around anymore.
No, she wouldn't be around anymore. And we're glad she's still around. But when you talk about emotional abuse, how she can go after people and she can slice and dice verbally with the best of them, wouldn't you say?
Yes. Yep.
And you've been on the other end of that many times.
Yes, I have. Yeah. And
when I first knew you, I saw you be on the other end of that, and it was not a pretty sight. Because, so I know you might not want to, but would you care to tell us all what you did before you retired, what your career was?
I was in law enforcement as a police officer for over 38 years before I retired, just during the pandemic.
Yes. So, again, I just want to point out that here's a person who spent her life in law enforcement. And by the way, I knew her then. And, the people that worked for her loved her and would follow her anywhere. And she would go, she would go from, like motorcycles to, domestic violence and she was a sergeant. So she, there were people that worked for her and they loved working for her. And, right up to the very end, they loved it because she is a kind and generous and helpful human being, very approachable. These are all qualities I saw in her when I decided that I really wanted to, get to know her better and to, maybe go out with her. I watched how people were with her. And I'm saying that just because, so that this is who she is as an adult. She's kind. She's generous. She's available. She's helpful. She is honest and truthful and, and wouldn't hurt a flea. And, I found out by being around her and her friends that, they're all pretty much like that, police officers. Anyway, so that's who she is as an adult. And yet, when her mother was around, who was, the abusive one emotionally and slapping a child, of course, is physical abuse, she would struggle keeping her adult self on board, keeping her adult self and having to go into, or finding yourself going into that child ego state. And so, I use that, I say that as an example of, I don't care who you are, how competent you are in your chosen profession. If you've had childhood trauma that has really affected you in your ability to mature and grow, it's not going to matter. You can be as strong as you want. And so, I understand that. And I hope that, I've said this before on the podcast, is that I've probably said this, every time I've done a podcast. And I know that people don't hear it or understand what I'm saying the first time. So I've said it again. I will say it again. And I've said it before. It doesn't matter how competent you are as an adult. If your parent or someone who's like your parent, which by the way is probably someone you married or in a relationship with, says or does something that triggers you, you'll be right into that wounded child ego state or in your adapted adult child ego state, whichever one, you get triggered into. And it's better, like Deb said, it's better to take a minute, get yourself together before you respond. But first of all, you have to recognize it. And it took you a while to recognize it, didn't it?
It did. Well, number one, it was you bringing it up, because I had no idea that was not, the usual way people were raised. I just figured that's just the way it was, and, that's okay. And I didn't realize the impact that childhood trauma, I didn't even think of emotional neglect as abuse. I had no idea, so that was a big learning curve for me. And it was a struggle for a while, as you know, for me to reconcile that and within myself that really was and what the impact was. It was certainly very helpful once I was able to do that, to be better. It's like you say, stopping and taking a look and taking stock of where you are and what's going on. And so that was an eye opener for me. It took me a while to realize that.
Mm-hmm. And so in your interactions with your mother now, sometimes you still get triggered, even though all this work and, having me around to help you see it when it happens, it's still a struggle. It can be a struggle.
Yeah, that still can be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so did you feel, I just wanted to ask you this, going back to when you started to recognize it, and in this case, it was me trying to point it out, and, and it wasn't just me then, because you went and did other things. And what did you do to try and deal with this when you realized how it affected you?
Well, when we talked about, when you and I were talking about how, both my parents were alcoholics, and now, that might have been a problem for you growing up, and maybe you needed to work on some stuff. You mentioned maybe it might be a good idea to go to Al-Anon. And I had never heard of Al-Anon, didn't know what Al-Anon was, and looked into it, and then started to go to Al-Anon. So, yeah, thank you very much for that.
You're welcome very much. And, did you find that those people could understand and relate to you? Oh,
for sure. Hearing stories of the first struggle I had is, when I was first started to go, I would compare what happened to me to their stories and go, well, that's nothing. And you had to remind me that no, you don't compare. Your trauma is just as valid as theirs. So that was, the first thing that I learned.
Mm-hmm. And how was it for you in Al-Anon? Did you find yourself able to go in and just jump in and get involved?
No. It took me a few years. I would go to meetings and sit there and cry and, struggle with stuff and, listen to people's stories and work on things. And it probably took me a couple of years before I could learn to speak up and share and meet.
Mm-hmm. And when you were going to Al-Anon, did you find that, that's like it took you 2 years, about 2 years to really get in and start, talking and sharing. Did you, quote, work through the steps, program? How'd that work? How'd that happen for you?
Eventually I started to volunteer and would help set up or break down and do those things, just gently getting into, working the program and helping out. And then eventually I got a sponsor and worked the steps.
Mm-hmm. Did you feel that was, did you feel that was changing you?
Yeah. It was scary, right? To dig in and work on stuff and really look at who you are in the examination, but it was very helpful. Yes.
And so I think that's key too. It's like, it takes courage to look at your own history, the history you've already lived, right? It takes a lot of courage to look at your own history and then to say, these are all true. Say it out loud, get it out there, have your feelings about it, and then take responsibility for what you do with it, right?
Right.
Because the minute you do that, then you cease to be a victim and you start to be a survivor. Right?
Right.
And that's what happened, right?
Yes.
And then you go from survivor to, better than surviving. You live it, you accommodate it and it improves your life rather than just surviving.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, there's one person that we still need to discuss because that was also very powerful, and that was your father. But we're going to do that in our next episode. So I hope, everybody, that you're able to come back and listen to the abandonment. And this is a abandonment I don't think you want to miss. In the meantime, let me remind you that if you want to contact me, you can do that by emailing me at healingyourfamilylegacy@gmail.com. See you then.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Healing Your Family Legacy here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. Healing Your Family Legacy is copyright 2022, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The SoulWorks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. SoulWorks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, we would love to have you join us in the SoulWorks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.